everyone, and welcome to my tutorial on the Elfentanz by Jenkinson. This is a great piece because it sounds a lot more difficult than it is. And even if you're not that advanced yet, you can certainly do a credible job of it. And it's loads of fun to play. It's great as an encore. It's great for exams. I really love this piece and I enjoy doing it every time I play it. Before I start on the actual tutorial, I would like to go into one sign in bar 8. It's a double sharp sign, just in case you've never come across it before. We have basically it's an F double sharp. If you go by an F, then a sharp raises it a semitone, then you have an F sharp. And a double sharp raises the F sharp another semitone. You wind up with the same note as a G, but it's an F double sharp. I just wanted to go into it in case you've never come across that before. The other thing I'd like to go into before we start are the chords at the end. Now, the most important thing with the chords is that you need to know in what order to place which finger. It's a good idea to practice the chords with a bow first because you can hear the intonation a lot better. The first chord, you have G sharp, D, and then the open E string. But the important thing is to put down your third finger D first, then fourth finger G sharp, and then you have the chord. If your E string doesn't whistle like mine just did. So with that chord, very important, put your third finger down first because your third finger D knows where to go. Then you put your fourth finger down on the G sharp, on the D string, and then you have the chord. The next chord is this one. There, you put your first finger down on the fifth, A and E. Then you put your second finger down, and then the third finger. So give yourself a lot of time to practice that. Third finger, fourth finger, chord. First finger, second finger, third finger, chord. Then practice it with what comes before. Play a couple of the bottom A's. Then third finger, fourth finger, chord. First finger, second finger, third finger, chord. When you can do that quite well, then you can switch to plucking the chords. Give yourself plenty of time to prepare the chords before you work on speeding up. If you prepare them well, speed will come on its own. For the plucking of the chords, you have two possibilities. The one possibility is that you play and then you only stretch out your first finger of your right hand, you keep your bow hold, and then you pluck the chords that way. The advantage is that you don't need to do anything here. You just stretch out your first finger and then you play the chords. The other way you could do it is, and in the break you take your bow into your fist, put your thumb on the corner of the fingerboard and pluck the chords that way. The advantage of that is that you have more control because you've got your thumb on the corner of the fingerboard and you can arpeggiate the chords. Whereas if you play them this way with the whole bow, it's more spectacular and you're playing them as chords more than arpeggiating them. So I leave that for you to decide which version you like. Both sounds good. It's very good. And the other one is also cool. Also good. So both are good. You'll have to decide that for yourself. Okay, so when you go about learning this piece, the first thing which is a good idea to do is not to repeat the notes. This piece is basically every note is repeated And that's one of the things which make it sound so much more difficult than it is, because you're basically sharing the workload between the hands here. But to learn it, forget the repeats. Play each note only once. So that's how you basically learn the piece, because the first thing you need to do is learn which notes are you supposed to play. So that's the first thing you do. You can also do it repeating the notes, but slowly, just to get an idea of what you're supposed to be doing. So work through the piece in both of those ways to learn the notes so that your left hand knows what to do and what notes to play. The next step is intonation. So practice it with drones. This piece is great for practicing with drones, and it's very necessary, and I practice it with drones all the time because otherwise my intonation messes up. So we've got to do what we can for intonation, so off we go. Practice the piece like that, and if a note is not in tune, like my B wasn't quite in tune, repeat it until it is in tune. Because if the piece is not in tune, it's not going to sound good. So give yourself plenty of time to practice this piece with open string drones. There are passages in this piece where you can't really use an open string drone due to the harmonies. For example, this part. Hardcore practicing intonation with drones, I actually did things like that with drones as well, also to get used to hearing semitones and strange intervals. I did. It sounds very strange. I can recommend it because it really does train your ear and it really will help your intonation. And so even places where open string drones aren't really possible or suitable, in a way they are. You're just learning very strange intervals and semitones and things like that. Your ear will get used to them. And after a while, yes, they're still dissonant, but you'll be able to hear if they are completely in tune or not. So I really would recommend going through the whole thing with drones as much as you can. If you absolutely don't want to do it or don't feel that that helps, then of course for hearing you have to relate one note to the previous note. So you have to relate the B flat to the A. It's harder to hear, but it works as well. Now, the most impressive thing in this piece is the speed. So that's most likely what you'll be spending most of your time practicing. You should be capable of playing the piece through without repeating the notes at a moderate speed before you tackle the next steps. You should be able to play it through at that speed, and you should have mastered the difficulties which are in it. There's only one shift up and one shift down. It's not difficult, but you should be able to play it at that speed so that you know it already. Now, how do we speed it up? We speed it up by separating the hands. Each hand has to be able to play it very, very fast on its own before we put the hands together. We're going to start with the left hand. What we do is we don't repeat the notes, and we speed it up. That's one way of doing it. You can speed that up further. So if your left hand can play it at that speed, you're already capable of playing it at quite a fast speed. But it's a good idea if your left hand is able to play it faster than it needs to, because then you'll have a lot of security. So one thing to do is, for instance, that you can practice at slurring 4. So see that you can get that really fast. You can even slur 8. If you can slur 8 at a fast speed, then definitely you don't have to worry about your left hand anymore. Then you've mastered that. So that's how you practice the left hand. The right hand, you do the exact opposite. Instead of repeating it twice, you might as well start out with twice. But what you then do is you don't play each note twice, but you play it 4 times. And the quarter notes, which you're supposed to play 4 times, you do 8 times. So what you have then is this. So there you see, the left hand is going very slowly and the right hand is going very fast. And then see if you can speed that up. So there you have the speed for the right hand. The bow can do it up to speed. The left hand can do it up to speed. And you see if you can put it together. But start slowly. And then speed it up. And then see if you can speed it up even further. It helps to know that the left hand can do it at that speed easily and the right hand can do it at that speed easily. You only have to practice putting it together then. Now there are a few things to watch out for, basically concerning the bow arm. The first thing, which is very important obviously, is to not use very much bow, because if you want to play it fast, you can't use a lot of bow. It simply won't work. You can't go... That's about the fastest I can move the bow at that speed. It doesn't sound and it's not fast enough. So you need very, very little bow. In the middle of the bow, approximately, very little bow. Don't use your whole arm. You'd be moving too much mass. Just use your wrist and fingers. So whatever you do, don't use your whole arm, use your wrist and your fingers. If you're not familiar with spiccato or sautillet, check out the videos I made on spiccato and sautillet. I'll have the links in the descriptions. Basically, you don't have to play this piece in spiccato or sautillet. It sounds good on the string as well. In fact, it's easier to do the dynamics and the accents become more pronounced. So don't worry about playing this on the string. Just make sure you don't tense up in your right arm and use fingers and wrists. That was on the string, so there's nothing wrong with playing this on the string. So if you're not familiar with spiccato or sautillet yet, don't worry about it. Play it on the string, it's fine. Maybe use it as an opportunity to learn spiccato and sautillet. And like I mentioned, I have the links in the description for you to learn the spiccato and the sautillet. Now, regardless of whether you play this in spiccato or whether you play it on the string, the accents in it. Now, how do you do the accents? The accents need more weight, so they're louder, and they need a little bit more bow, but you have to be very careful not to use too much bow, because otherwise you won't be in the right place to do the spiccato, or even if you play it on the string, you don't want to be too close to the frog or too close to the tip. So make sure you use a little bit more bow for the accents, but not too much. So I'm using a little bit more weight and a little bit more bow, but I'm making sure that I'm staying in the same area of the bow to be able to play it. For crescendi and decrescendi, it's basically the same principle. If you want to get louder, you need a little bit more bow and you need a little bit more weight. That's if you're playing it on the string. So if you have so you're using more bow as you go along. If you're doing it spiccato or sautillet, you make a crescendo by wandering slightly towards the frog because the bow is heavier. So you're moving slightly towards the frog. Remember, even moving only a little bit towards the frog makes the bow quite a bit heavier, which in spiccato or sautillet makes a big difference. Don't move too far to the frog because it won't work anymore. So you'll notice if you're too far at the frog. And the same if you want to get softer, it's the same reverse. You move away from the frog again. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a lot of fun with this piece. And if you have any further questions, let me know in the comments.